My name is Andy Cook. I'm part of Workers' World Party in Durham, North Carolina. I'm also with Fight Imperialism Stand Together. Durham, where I live, is not a very large town. It's one of the larger ones in North Carolina, but it's not a huge city by any means. But in the past 6 months alone, there's been 5 police murders, incidents involving the police where people have died, all either black or brown people, African American and Latino men and young people. 2 of them were a man's name was Jose Ocampo. Had recently gotten out of a psychiatric hospital and had clearly had some mental issues going on, and it would from the accounts of people nearby, did not understand what the officers were telling him, and he was shot. Another man, I forget his name, he was an African American man in his late 30s, also had a history of mental illness and was shot in public in the main square of Durham, what we call CCB Plaza, or we've taken it over and renamed it People's Plaza. The most recent example was also kind of the most tragic. A young Latino man, young Latino boy, 17 years old, was taken into police custody, handcuffed, put in the back of the police car, and later died in police custody. The official story that the police chief has handed out is that he somehow shot himself while handcuffed in the back of the car. We don't know why. It really doesn't make any sense or seem physically possible. Some of the folks that we work with in other movement in Durham know personally, we're friends with this young man, and it's just the latest kind of incident in a whole string of police repression. And beyond the people who have actually died at the hands of the Durham Police, there's even more accounts of police brutality and frame-ups. One of the cases that we've worked around the most was a young man named Carlos Riley Jr., a black man who was pulled over by a unmarked police car, and a plainclothes officer in an unmarked car. And at first he didn't slow down his car because you don't, that's your right if it's not if it's not clear that you are being followed by a police officer. He was pulled over, and there was an altercation. The officer did violence against him and started to draw his weapon, and the officer shot himself in the leg. Carlos, fearing for his life, disarmed the officer, unloaded the gun, and drove away and ran away. At first, the story at first was that that Carlos shot the officer, but that later was recanted by the officer himself, and said that it was actually him who shot himself, and yet Carlos Riley Jr. is still in federal prison. So I know that in particular the conversation that we've had tonight has been about we wanted to share strategies and what kind of tactics we've used in struggling against police brutality. Because these are issues that really strike a chord with everybody in our community. There has been a lot of mass movement around it, but it's been a struggle to kind of organize it and unify everyone. There's a number of different organizations and different currents of activism that kind of pursue their own directions. And some of our allies have taken a path of, writing a community statement and recommendations to the town council, and that's actually been accepted, and they're going through a process of negotiating and kind of working within the system to change policy. But the struggle was a lot more intense before this town council stuff started happening, and it's our opinion that we need to keep pushing even while there's some legal struggle going on. We always have to be in the streets and organizing and keeping the pressure on them, because we may get a law, we may get some changes, police accountability, but it's going to be us in the streets that makes that happen. And there was a particularly militant demonstration after the death of Jesus Huerta, the 17-year-old young man who was killed. It was about 300 people, his friends, family, supporters, and there was actually some street fighting with the police outside of the police headquarters. So just kind of an expression of the intensity of the situation and the kind of rage that exists in the community right now. Something that has been, we for the campaign of Carlos Riley Jr., we formed an organization and took leadership from his family, who kind of formed this organization called Liberty and Justice for Carlos Riley Jr. And we work very closely in that. We go door to door, publicizing for events involving educational opportunities about police brutality and police murders. A particularly successful event was we went door to door building up for a community cookout in a local park. We provided food and kind of just a space, music, had a really a block party kind of atmosphere, but it was really in content a very political, like, people's assembly against police brutality. We had space for people to speak out against about incidents that they've experienced, them and family members. Particularly powerful was a man who had trouble speaking and had lasting kind of motor and speech impediments because of a beating that he received from the police, and he suffers seizures and has no way to kind of get recompense for that. There's just nowhere. There's no way to hold the police accountable, and so I think that kind of sums up our efforts right now. We're in the process of figuring out how to channel the anger and the outrage of the community into action that will really produce change.